the Sky Priestess, and welcome to this live video. As always, I'm going to give a few seconds just for people to see the notifications and then to rush on to YouTube to see if they can catch live. And it helps. Either way, we're going to start shortly on today's topic, which is all about Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Now, the reason why I didn't immediately jump the gun and, go forth and say, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, that's going to happen, is because I wanted to take the time to feel into the energy to see what this shift truly holds for all of us. Because you can learn a lot about a transit just by paying attention to how it begins. What unfolds tends to be an iteration of the original starting point, as it were. Now, I know some of this video is likely to be shared often because it's one of those videos that does get shared around, especially when I talk about large planetary transits into new signs. And for those of you who are new to me, it is okay if you believe in 13 sign astrology. It's okay if you practice the sidereal system and for you things are different. I do what I do. And all of us need to do what feels and what works right. Oh, what feels and rather what works best. And, with that, we can segue into the topic of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Now, Saturn in Aquarius has taught us a lot. It has taught me a lot, and it has been definitely the hardest 3 years of my life. And I think a lot of people feel exactly the same way because we've been very pushed. We've been challenged. The world has seen a extraordinary phase in greater digitization. We are looking at AI chatbots. We are looking at how social media has transformed and had another mini revolution. We're looking at how our ideas of the collective have transformed, and now it's time to be doing something different. So one of the things, and I said this years ago, and for those of you interested in my original writings, you can go to my website, theskypriestess.com, and you can go and look up stuff that I've been saying for years. Whilst we are moving towards the age of Aquarius, a lot of people tend to confuse Aquarius and Pisces. So they kind of project Aquarian, rather they project Piscean energies onto the idea of Aquarius, because if you were to look at the astrology of the time when this really got popular in popular culture and so on and so forth, started out as a fringe. Now a lot of people know about it, I would say, maybe not the mainstream, but it started out at a time where we had a very, very strong Neptunian and Pisces influence in the skies. So a lot of people conflate these two signs, even though they are remarkably different. Now, that's why I'm talking about Saturn in Aquarius first, and then segueing into Saturn into Pisces. Aquarius is a mental, it is the energy of the mind, it is the energy that links to the astral plane, whereas Pisces is a lot more intuitive. Yes, it does go very, very deep into emotional waters, but the quality or the type of way in which it accesses what we call psychic abilities is very different from what you find with Aquarius. Aquarius will rely on logic and reason to find that intuitive leap, but Pisces relies on feeling, on clairsentience, clairaudience, simply just being and knowing. They are very, very different in nature and character. So with the Saturn in Pisces transit, what we can expect is a collective need to look at the boundaries, the lessons, the strength, the discipline that we need to develop vis-a-vis our spiritual practices and our spiritual understanding, our relationship with karma, our relationship with God, goddess, divinity, call it what you want, great spirit, creator, creatrix. There's so many names out there you can use. But this is an extraordinarily important time for all of us as a collective to be looking at this question. What is our relationship with spirit and how do we find it? Now, because of, capitalism, spirituality and wellness are their own big booming industries. And I'm not going to, sit here and call out people left, right, and center. But what I can tell you is this. If you are looking for answers to spirit or how to find spirit from someone else, you are already empowering someone with a position that they do not need to have in your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get a reading, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get assistance, but remember that whatever you take in, if you are looking for spiritual answers, if you are looking to just understand a little bit more about this world, no matter who you're talking to, whether it's me, whether it's someone else, that is always that filtered by that person's subjective view. I do my best to corroborate. I use multi methods. I check in with people whose site I trust before I make very definitive statements. But even then, I am always very circumspect to say, this is what I know at this time. This is my understanding at this moment. Because in each person's journey, understanding continues to evolve. But in this transit, what I want you to remember is that you should not be handing over your connection, or rather your right to determine your connection with spirit, to anyone or anything. Yes, get readings. Yes, get facilitation if it's with people you trust. But remember that these are all perspectives. They may be right, they may be wrong. One of the hardest things being in this field for me has been to see so many people whom I cared about, so many people whom I cherished, just kind of go down a very weird path. I remember that happened to someone who I was doing, for fun, I would do readings for him. And he was someone who absolutely loved dragons. And each time I did a tarot read for him, I was like, buddy, no, something is wrong. And he would very matter of factly just laugh and say, no, you can't be further from the truth. And that man ended up dying in his 40s, leaving behind a teenage daughter. And I knew something was wrong. He had gone down a path, his ego had caught up to whatever he was doing, and that distorted his work. And I could see it, but I'm not in a position to make that statement to anyone. And I've seen it with quite a few facilitators. And it's hard. It's very hard. And it's one of the reasons why I keep pushing myself. Is this right? Did I do this okay? Am I being prejudiced by my own biases? Am I believing what I want to believe? Is the opposite true? How does it feel to think about the opposite? And that's how I keep constantly checking myself. And also, I constantly keep learning. And that is one of the key skills I would recommend everyone develop, especially at this time. Rather than expecting some holy vessel to deliver you a prophecy of your future and what you're meant to be doing, say, okay, I got this perspective. How does it feel? Does this feel like it's mine? Does this feel like this is the person's own, whatever's going on with them? Does this message feel like it was for a completely different person? I need you to pause and ask yourself that, rather than just going, someone claims they're a divine vessel, someone claims they've got guidance, I'm going to believe everything that they say. Don't do that. When people work with me, I tell them the same thing. If you think it's bullshit, tell me you think it's bullshit, and we will sit down and figure out why. So far, no one has told me that. But it's something that I hope more and more will continue to practice, because I have been through the mill looking for answers, and I have found that my ability to discern has been my saving grace. My ability to take a step back and say, wait a minute, where is this coming from? How does it feel? Does it resonate with me? And if not, why may that be the case? Start asking yourselves these questions. That's how you know. Even if you go for a good job managing their time, or did not just practice basics, psychic hygiene, you can still get something out of it when you take a step back and say, well, this is mine and this isn't. Which doesn't mean that, they should be excused for not doing their job properly, but if it does happen, remember that keeping this space clear, anyone dictate terms to you, even if, they claim to be whatever, is key. Another thing that I see with Saturn in Pisces coming up especially the way TikTok is just blown up in the past few years, I see more and more people focusing on the image and not the content. I see more and more people who are using beautiful words to describe things in ways they know will entice and hook the reader. But that's the last thing you should be doing. From my personal experience, the people whom I have truly come to respect as teachers are the ones who have never felt the need to do that. Their words speak themselves, and you will find them if you need to. You don't need to be selling yourself as a brand. You don't need to be posturing in a way to get others to notice you. You're not a peacock. Well, if you were and you're watching my video, kudos. But you don't need to be doing things to create that hook, because that then becomes work. The more you try to hook people to come to you, the more hooky your work is going to be. And that is something I hope that for the facilitators amongst you, you bear that come your way will come your way. Don't force it. Don't push it. Because with Pisces, the only way through Pisces is faith. It is not fear. It is not, trying to push it through. It is not a space of trying to jump through intellectual loopholes. It's not a space of trying to figure it out through astrology. It's not a space of trying to take shortcuts. It's a space of humility and faith. Now, for me, it has always been clear to me from day one, even though I have acted against my better judgment many times, but it has always been clear to me that the person that you really need to have faith in, first and foremost, is in yourself. And the reason I say this is not to encourage narcissism or solipsism or whatever ism you want to call it, but it is to trust that you, as the perceiver of your experiences, are present, are here, are witnessing and experiencing what you need to witness at this precise moment. And that does not justify abuse, it does not justify bad experiences, but rather it brings you back to a place of centeredness, no matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter how scary, how horrifying, how, terrifying a thing may be. But when you can have faith that you are here, if nothing else, and that you as a being are experiencing, just that awareness can ignite. And it, it sounds kind of counterintuitive at first. The internet does not like me. But I was saying, yeah, you are here. And I know the most foundational statement that you can make, but it is what it is. Have faith in your own presence, have faith in your own being. And you don't have to put a value to that. You don't have to believe you're very smart. You don't have to believe you're very beautiful. You don't have to believe you're very holy. You don't have to believe you're very sacred. The more you put onto that concept, the further away you get from simply being. And this is why I've always had a problem with affirmation. I've had a problem with them because they intellectualize. I am. That's it. Full stop. That is the most powerful affirmation that you can make. And the more you get into that space, you will ultimately realize that I is not your ego, I is not your mind, your conditioning, I is something far deeper, and that connects back with spirit. So that's how we get back to the spiritual. But you have to ask yourself, strip away the dealings and illusions that have kept you comfortable. One of the hardest things for people to do. Because people build entire careers on this. People build entire lives around this. Are you willing to strip away from your own illusions so you can see who you actually are and who others are by that extension? but it has to start with the self. That kind of commitment, for me at the very least, has been what has saved me. Yeah. The moment I put a little bit of my spiritual intensity into the work that I'm saying or doing, the internet kicks it. It does not like actual power. But anyway, so as I was saying, the moment you can actually have faith in your presence, in your being, just as a statement, not good, not bad, not ugly, whatever, just have faith in your own presence. That is what shows you the way forwards. It doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that you are. And that quality of being without judgment, without some teleological narrative, without conceptualizing it into another framework of some kind, that's where you find spirit. It is honestly that simple. But it's difficult to do because one of the hardest things for people to do is to face themselves. And the further you go down the spiritual path, you will not only have to face yourself in the moment, but also, if anything is present, aspects of yourself from a different time. Whatever it is has generated a particular karmic cycle that you are on. And that cycle will clear once you are able to face yourself. Now, what is very alarming, and you know I've talked about voracity, the false light, before. What is very alarming is how realistic, hyper realistic, the false light can be. And that is also going to be a big test for people with Saturn in Pisces. You can go and focus on something and go and find something that gives you answers that you want, answers that make you feel good. But is that actually spirit? And that's going to be a question that we need to keep asking ourselves. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone and looked at someone coming for a session going, what on earth made you take this decision? I heard it in a dream, or my guide told me to do it. But where was your sense? And they just kind of go, but, and that doesn't help. And again, not being judgy because I've done all this bullshit. So ultimately, you have to come back to that space that is you before you can tell apart what is real and what is not real. Just because anyone or anything claiming to be something of a higher frequency or a higher vibration or a higher this or a higher that doesn't mean that it's good. It doesn't even mean that it's real. So many people thinking that they are working with the divine, actually working with its very opposite. Bet you also see this on the road. And that's why it's so important to bring your experience back to being. Notice, my hand goes here. It doesn't go here, it doesn't go to my gut, it is here. The heart is still the most powerful gateway to spirit. And as long as you can remember that, and remember that there is a need for continued discernment, and that there are pitfalls along the way that you can avoid, unless you absolutely have to experience it. As long as you remember that, you can find a smoother way through. I cannot guarantee that everything's just going to be absolutely fine. And if it was, in this day and age, I would have questions. But it comes back to presence. Now, a lot of the time, people hit a certain limit, especially when they have very strong Saturn, Pluto, Theros alignments. They hit a certain limit and they don't want to go past that limit. And rather than continuing to look for truth, they settle into a version of truth which is blocked. And from that version of truth, they can still feel very ascended, they can still feel like they're doing high level energy work, but the image of what they get is very distorted. You cannot find a proper teacher unless that person has chosen truth over comfort. A lot of people are using spirituality as a means to find comfort. whether it's for their material life or whether it's for their ego. If you want that, go do something else. But the path that I have experienced, that I have lived through, often, you know, moving through the eye of the needle, is that one must always choose truth, no matter how painful that truth can be. No one says you have to do it alone. As long as you're not becoming a drain on someone else, have a support system. Be reciprocal. Draw proper boundaries and make sure you take no one for granted. But you must be committed to seeing them. One of the most painful parts for me on my journey, was looking at everything ancient that I thought I was a part of or that I wanted to be a part of again. And the more layers I started stripping away to see what was the energy beneath all of this, the more I went, oh God, I cannot have anything to do with this further. And disillusionment is also a very important part of the journey. If you have been on a spiritual path and up to this point have never felt that something you believed a while back was no longer accurate or was no longer in alignment, I will ask you, either you are God incarnate or something has gone wrong. It is okay to be wrong on the path. It is okay to make mistakes. Some people will say, it's not a mistake. Well, I can see the merit in saying that. But some roads will take you up the mountain more gently, and others will make you lose a limb. You decide which is better. But it is okay to make mistakes as long as you are willing to face them, as long as you are willing to learn. But having said that, that is probably the most powerful attitudes, you want to call them lessons, you can, but those are the most powerful points, I would say, to help you navigate. And it is important to get external perspective sometimes because we can get too caught up in ourselves. And if a situation involves beings that we love, it's very, very easy to lose sight of your own objectivity or even your best attempts of it. But just bear in mind, at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing, you got to check in with here. The internet teaches me patience. So let's have a look at the comments and let's see what's going on here. And thank you as always for your patience. So let's see who's here. Hello, Nacha. Hello, Brandon. Nice to see you. Hello, Medea. Nice to see you, sis. Hello, Cannonball. I was just thinking about you. Let's see. Cannonball says, do you have thoughts about the 2026 Saturn-Jupiter conjunction? I notice it forms a kite with Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, supergalactic center. It seems very exciting. Of course, you're going to ask me that. Jesse, talking about 2026 is meaningless right now because you need to focus on what Saturn has to teach you in Pisces first and then have a look. Yes, it can be exciting, but it can also be entirely the wrong energy that gets coded. So you got to focus on finding that path of truth and purity first. Otherwise, the wrong thing is going to get set into motion. Shin says, hope you've been doing well. Better every day. Thank you. I see N Black. Hey fam, nice to see you. I see Vernie. I see Sarah. I see Yessie. I see Ra. I see Saturn Conscious. Hi, hi. I see AA. Very good. Always asking for clarity, discernment, and divine guidance. Very good. But also just remember to listen. A lot of the times people ignore the little voice within because they're so focused out. All right, I am back. Angela says birthday's coming up. Happy birthday in advance. Second return. Yike. I see Coyote. Hello, brother. I see Karine. Georgia laughs. Let's see. The blue is popping on you. Love it. Thank you. It's pure gold says focus on the heartbeat, faithful. Exactly. It strip it all away and that's it. That's all you actually need. Focus on, you might want to go back to the beginning, actually, brother, just because we talked about this in a fair bit. But it is focusing on that presence, on your sense of being, who you are. The heart is definitely the best gateway for this. So, when I say focus on when you say focus on the heart, there's a concept to it. So I'm just using my hand to indicate where I feel that presence most strongly for me. So focus on your own presence, focus on your own being, focus on your own energy, and listen. It's good to get external perspectives, but if you're not listening to this, you're putting yourself at risk of being misguided by people who are very certain that they are not misguided. So, I see Candy. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Do we have any questions with respect to what has been said so far? And thank you again for your patience through the internet. I top up, there's not much more I can do, but you know, you got to work with what you got. Any more questions? Let me know, let me know. Julia says being and feeling. That's about it. Yeah, yep. It's going to be a couple of years. It's going to be a couple. Feels like we're a church family. Lol. Hi, good folks and golden. Oh God, no. Well, it kind of is. It kind of is in the sense in community, and we are talking about what paths spirit. So I guess, I mean, ideally, do anyway. I see Irene. Hello, hello. I mean, I'm going to do another video with I'm going to do a pre-recorded video with the more astrological insights, what's coming up, when, how to deal with what, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to pre-record that one because this to be more about the feeling. Irene says, apocalypse energy. I don't know. I don't see that at all. I think it can be an apocalypse if that's what people make it to be. But actually, I see this as a very good opportunity for us to actually get back on track. But to do that, again, as I've said in the video, we need to be going to the truth and focusing on the truth and not our own comfort. But you may want to go back to the start of the video and get the lessons in the beginning first. Shin says, when you have 29 degrees, Saturn aqua return, how does that energy play out when it shifts to Saturn in Pisces? Hopefully, it should be less of a focus on the mind and more on the other psychic senses, which actually does bring me to a good point. As I've said in previous videos as well, don't be looking for enlightenment. Don't look for enlightenment. Don't look for activations. Don't look for energetic awakenings. This is something I know a lot of people, again, make a business out of this, but you don't need to look for it. Because I can tell you, astrologically speaking, there are certain alignments, key alignments in your chart that have a lot to do with when you awaken and how you awaken. And um, when you actually try to force that or push that, just because someone can, do something and open up the energy for you, it actually changes your path in a way that doesn't, or rather isn't required. So don't be looking to push things, don't be looking to rush things. Trust that everything will unfold at exactly the right time. Um, and I know that means a lot of patience, especially when everyone goes, oh, everyone around you might be going, oh, I did this and I feel like a new person and I'm awakened and I'm aligned now. Well, great for them. I don't know what's running through them, but please, anyone who does listen to what I have to say, take your time and let things organically unfold. And yes, I also second what Sabina said. I thought of that as soon as I read the question. The root meaning of apocalypse is revelation. And yes, I don't see this as a bad time at all. It is only going to be a bad time for people who are in denial and for people who want to keep all systems running. That's how I see it. But the problem is collectively, and that is where you can expect the discomfort. And that's a good thing because people, you often only really make decisions that change their lives when they are pushed to do so, when they are uncomfortable. So choose the truth, and you won't have to go through that in a very abrasive way. Okay, let's see. I see Aluxa. Chin. Irene says, I have Neptune conjunct my south node, highly Neptunian. Feels like it's rocking my world. Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. You would be very, very sensitive to it. In your case, I would say definitely you want to be very, very strong on learning your own boundaries, what you let in and what you don't let in. Again, please go back to the start of the video because there's probably some information there that you would especially find very useful. GD says, how about Saturn in Leo? I'm going to assume 29 degrees. It really depends on the placement. I could answer Shin's question because we were talking about the shift of Saturn from Aquarius into Pisces. But let's see. Saturn in Leo, hopefully you'll have um, more of an impulse to protect yourself better. Irene says, how to protect energy boundaries feels impossible unless I am in solitude. You need to find a good teacher that actually teaches this. There's a lot of material that you can read online. It's a very, very large subject. But again, go back to the start. Um, Candy says, just curious, how can I find where Boracity is a natal chart? You can find it at www.astro.com and input additional objects there. I think it's, normally I remember this, but let me just grab my laptop for a second. Uh, Let me just grab my laptop and get you the number of it, because all these fellows have a number. It's either, I think it's 66652, but let me just double check real quick. Yes, yeah, you got it, you got it. Irene says, okay, I'm subbing to you. I like your energy. Oh, no, don't. Don't. Take your time, listen and look at the previous videos. I value psychic discernment and groundedness a lot. So take your time first before you decide to sub. Um, Dr. B is a G. What's triple 652? Yes. Um, so these basic things, these basic ideas will help you. And I know I've said it many times. I did many, many times. But these basic ideas will help you all the way. That's why I don't do as much astrological videos as I used to, because astrology is another hook. It is another hook. It is another thing to say, you've always got to be focused on what's happening next. You've always got to prepare for what's happening next. You always have to know what's happening next. That then becomes the path rather than your heart leading the path. So, like I said, key core ideas in a nutshell, and that should take you a long way. And I said, the internet, in particular in Georgia, can we use the heart to protect the boundaries? Yes, but it takes a lot of inner strength first. You have to know your own heart before you can do that. Irene says, I can't operate out of fear. Thanks for your insight. I do the same thing, so I'm not saying this in a judgmental way, but if you are new to all of this, please note that spiritual work and psychological self-work go hand in hand. You can't do one and neglect the other. If you don't take care of your mind, if you don't look at your own traumas, if you don't look at your own accountability for your own emotions, work is going to be pants. It's just not going to do much for you except make you more vulnerable and more open. Start this first before you try anything else. um, if you're doing psychological self-work 24/7, you're doing it wrong, because you need time to sleep. Either way, let me get to other people. Yikes, directly try Neptune. Keep the insights coming and keep diving deep. Julia says, it feels like living is becoming the only true path. That's right. Just says, thank you, most welcome. Pauline says, I do it dreams itself, but you need to come back to your psychological work first. And that is a conscious of exploration. That's not something that dreams necessarily, but I would like to talk. So keep the questions coming. And, Saturn in Pisces is a big energy. It is a very, very big energy. And as you know, the internet dislikes me when I have information to give. But as I said, I will be doing a pre-recorded video with the astrological insights so that you can actually, look at that, write down things, and we don't have to go, we don't have to go into that, especially with a spotty internet connection, especially tonight. So there will be a part two to this that's pre-recorded, which has more of the astrological insights. Remember, astrology is not the path. It is not the path. At best, it is a roadmap. That's it. And even that, the quality of the roadmap depends on the quality of the person reading it. You can have the same chart in front of you, and different people will read different things. So do not fall into the trap of too much on it. That is why I do not let people work with me more often than 3 to 6 months once. Do not create a dependency with any tool or any person. Let's see. Yes, agree with Shin. Vivi says, is there anything to look out for in the next 2 months? A lot, Vivi. There's always things to look out for. There's always things to look out for. But a really big one coming up is Pluto moving into Aquarius. So that's going to be end of the month. That's a very big collective shift. That's a very big, big, you know, it's a huge thing that's happening for all of us. So there's going to be a lot and a lot and a lot of transformation and change for all of us at all levels of life. So there is a lot happening. And so just go with your flow. You've already been getting guidance as to what the change needs to be. Make the change and keep asking the right questions. Let's see. Julia says, Dr. All right, here we go. And we are back. Julia asks, is going to increase for many. They're going to be forced into it. There's a difference between having that awareness ripped open because you don't want to acknowledge it versus getting into it as a natural part of your spiritual evolution and journey. That's why I said you need to do the basics first. So it's going to increase, but just because someone is more psychically aware does not mean they are psychically accurate. There are tons of people with psychic sensitivity and zero insight, zero wisdom. So that literally means zilch. Kundalini experiences, I wrote this in an article years ago in Elephant Journal actually. Yes, they can come, but it's the same energy that without the proper guidance can leave a person mad and ill for decades. So yes, all of this can happen, but that is exactly why you have to be very grounded in yourself. There is no point in wanting to figure out the up there when the here is neglected. Samantha says, I love the way you simplify and focus on the being and the heart. It's the only way I could survive. And I do my best. I do my best. I am teasing Irene a little bit because I don't want her to start subscribing to me on the basis of this. My work differs in approach from many, many. Oh, are we back? Haha, we're back. Hang on. Here we go. Here we go. Hello, hello, hello again. Right. You would have just seen the kitty litter for a moment, but oh well. As I was saying, as most of you know, my work requires a lot of discipline, first and foremost. So, that's not something a lot of people focus on. Discipline is key. Nikki says, haven't had the pleasure to see you in quite a while. Nice to see you. VB says, do you think this is a time of love to give and receive? I think the people who have been giving love too much will have to give less. And I think the people who have been receiving too much without giving back will have to give more. So it all depends on where you are. If you are a compulsive overgiver, it is time to cut back. If you are someone who is very, very, very happy taking the energies of other people, it is time for you to give more and take less. So it depends on where you are on that spectrum. Knowing you, you're not a taker. You're the opposite. I see, this phone. I see Coyote saying facts. Yes, it is very, very relative. I mean, if you think about it, um, we need to get more simple in our lives. We need to get more. I'm sorry, Coyote is making me laugh. He's saying, I'm giving nothing. Fair enough, brother, fair enough. We need to get a lot more simple with our lives and with our practice because we cannot afford the baggage anymore. The downside of not simplifying is that this is a time with Saturn in Pisces. You can also see a great intensification of people falling into addiction, people trying to disassociate, people developing mental health issues. You have to be very careful about this because this is the other side. Now, if you're referring to that as apocalypse energy, yeah, that sucks. This is an extremely important time to get simple and get pure from within because that is what we need to anchor us in the next few years to come. If you are still relying on the external, whether that's a person, a substance, or a hobby or something that just keeps you away from you, you're not going to have a great time. Vivi says, I have made a pact to give more self-love. Yes, in your case, more self-love. Well, that's true for most people following me anyway. So, Vernie says, I feel that for me, this is a time to be real, level with myself, and this may be a time for major transformation. That's exactly it. It has it in a nutshell. Good job. Good job. But ultimately, remember being here first. There's no point trying to go out there if you can't just sit with yourself for a moment. It's one of the hardest things to do. And I don't mean hiding from people. That's not necessarily the same as being with yourself. But, though, to be fair, I am a hermit. But sometimes, even when you walk around, when you interact with people, in whatever way you interact with, you still need to keep yourself true to here, to your presence, to your being. And let that be an anchor for all of you. Coyote says, I do it all the time. Good job, brother. For decades. Fair enough. Fair enough. Auntie Sue says it's exhausting. It is. And we all are going to need more sleep, more rest, more rejuvenation, more self-care. So I'm very glad and grateful for VB who brought up the point. This is why I like the lives, because astrology, yes, I can do my stuff. But, when we interact as a community, we can also bring up a lot of things that would have otherwise been missed. Let's see. Says, I do it in hermit mode. I know what you mean. Because of my illness for the past, actually quite literally. So hopefully this is going to be a phase for me to move out and to do my work in the world, which has to do with the spiritual realm. That's why I am here on this planet. So hopefully for me, it's going to be getting back out there again. So fingers crossed. JD says, is it a good time for business partnership? Depends on who you are. You know, don't expect personalized answers on a live this community discussion like this. If you want an answer, book a session. It's that simple. Otherwise, I can just tell you crap and you can go and do something and then go, oh no, she gave me a bad answer. No, thank you. Take the time, respect your business, invest in it, book a session if you want. Shin says, I didn't know your health was bad, feel better soon. Oh, no, it has been shit. It has been totally shit. But I can see why it happened. I can see what I have learned through the process. I would not that particular journey for anybody. But I would say I'm definitely not the same person I was. And that's not a bad thing. I think I probably like myself more than I ever did, which is good. But not in a, I'm so cool. I do say that when I do dorky stuff, like watch anime and nerdy stuff. But from a spiritual perspective, no, it's just, I think I like myself more now. There's far more stripped down, and I like what I see in the mirror. At the end of the day, you got to do that. And I also find I can't wear makeup anymore. I know it can be fun. I usually wear it once a year for my birthday, but can't do it. Can't be arsed, as they say in England. Um, but on a good note, it can also be a great. It can also be a great time for people who are creating things, musicians, artists. Wonderful time for you to work at it and come up with something inspirational. Just focus on here and see what comes. I would say sound, focus on sound. Those of you who work with sound healing, who are singers, that's going to be very, very big coming soon. Hollow Vegeta asks, anime, what you watching, Doc? I am a bit of a traditionalist, as with most things. Um, but I am watching Inuyasha, which is an anime that's like 20 years old or something, and I adore it. It's actually, to be honest, I'm glad for the question because a priestess. And oh, you on My Hero Academia? Yes, we watched that too. We watched that too. We love My Hero Academia. And Deku is a really good example of facilitator burnout. Uh, but Inuyasha is particularly relevant for me. It's a story about a priestess who very valiantly overwhelm her. She's about to die. So oh, for God's sake, internet, you suck. Is it back? Are we there? Hello? 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 Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your patience. I know it's going to sound terrible when you listen to it again, especially the glitchy parts. But yes, as Shin says, the internet died at the idea of good anime. But in Priestess Midoriko, who keeps getting 10 people on the negative path. Of Saturn in Pisces. For God's sake, it's probably why it's cutting out. It's okay. It's okay, Candy. It's okay. But thank you for trying. Thank you for trying. But effectively, it's the story of it's the story of it's the story of Kikyo and Inuyasha, who later encounter the jewel. She falls in love with this half demon, and her spiritual powers begin to wane, and she starts to slip up. And there is a demon called Naraku who basically pits these instead of Kyo ultimately chooses to die with the Shikon jewel in her possession because she thinks that that will purify the jewel and keep it safe. But because Kikyo is filled with an intense hatred of Inuyasha and an intense love for him, the jewel uses her to reincarnate 5 centuries later as an aspect of herself in the form of a girl named Kagome. And the whole story is really about learning the lesson of detachment, letting go, forgiving, not assuming, actually communicating to, bring a person back into alignment, and finally also realizing that it is okay to let go of old emotions. and it is okay to do something without needing to carry the negative weight and the burden of the past. So, it's a very beautiful anime about detachment, and also knowing that it's not a good idea to be attached to your role, whether it's a path of service like Midoriko. If she had not been so super attached, she wouldn't have created a cursed artifact that affected thousands of lives. Or like Kikyo, who was so attached to her emotions of vengeance, she created and recreated the cycle of hatred. And finally, all of this ends with Kagome, who is someone who is willing to look at all of these large stories and go, you know what, I am so small in all of this, but I'm just going to love this guy whether or not he can love me back. There's a whole side plot about Kikyo reincarnating and Inuyasha having to choose which woman he wants to be with, which is ridiculous. But ultimately, Kagome is the strongest spiritual figure there because her path is all about love. Her ability to love someone actually empowers her and does not take away from her ability to purify the jewel. So that's what I've been watching, and my brother makes fun of me for it because, I just like watching it. So I would recommend it. It is a long investment of time. I sometimes skip episodes if I know it's not very relevant, but it's got a lot of Saturn and Pisces lessons. It's all about the letting go and knowing what you need to let go of. If you die holding this intense, I must serve, I must protect, yeah, you're not going to move on. You're going to be stuck there. Very, very important lesson. Shashomaru is the worst brother ever. That's true. That's true. But he too has to learn how to love. Otherwise, he can't use his magical sword. Julia says, Dr. B, have you ever had a period of non communication with your brother? Yes, yes, I have actually. We were, as most of you would know, we both had to survive extremely narcissistic, well, not just parents, but a narcissistic family unit. And it was one of those situations where one was pitted to the other. So for many years, we barely communicated, just functional stuff, and some more intense phases of that, not at all. We only really started to rebuild our relationship from scratch when I was about 21 years old. And it was a very conscious, willing act. It was not something that, came easy. We had to unlearn everything, and we had to, we had to rebuild everything. It was never always like this. There have been long absences, long phases. Why do you ask? Hollow says, yes, yes, he's referring to the anime. There's a lot of learning about love and how love is a truly redemptive force in it. I like the old animes. I mean, don't blame me. The new ones, there's an audience for it, but the old ones really get you, especially the music. Fantastic music. But yeah, so that's what I have been doing whilst resting. Um, Happily watching anime, thinking about this stuff, doing sessions when I can, and just processing and clearing. It comes down to it at the end of the day. So yes, big recommendation. Yasha, excellent for learning the lessons of detachment. Sometimes you gotta detach yourself from the label of being spiritual to actually find it, which is how weird this thing works. I wouldn't be surprised at some point, once I'd finished doing what I want to do in this role, I would just disappear, just go somewhere completely different, and I don't know, open a bakery and sell buns. That is something I've always wanted to do, though. But yeah, anywho. Julia says, because I'm going through a detachment and cooling period with my sis, very hard but expensive. Yeah, we had to go through that. We had to go through that, especially when we had to, rebuild, repair, rebuild, unlearn a lot of. If it had been, I would have had a much happier life. But no, this was a decision made in adulthood. So yes, take your time though. The periods apart help. If both of you, if there is real love and there is real willingness to connect, that will only help. And if there isn't a willingness to you know connect, well, that's a different issue. LS Cherry says, wasn't expecting the buns. Lol, gave me a chuckle. I would like to. I like to cook. I like to cook. I haven't been able to because I got very ill. But this is what I watch on Instagram. I look at cooking, and I look at art, and I look at people making pottery, and I look at lots of dogs and cats looking cute. You know, what else would you look at? I mean, I'm sure other people look at other things, but that's what I like to look at. Buddy Gator comics. Yeah, I think I used to read them, Jesse. I think I used to read them. But I have to look it up again. But I think so. I think I've read them. I do like reading comics as well. And it's important. It's important to have levity. You know, if I sounded like this all of the time or when I'm in facilitation all of the time, I would explode. So it's important to have levity. It's important to be silly. It's important to just do things because you like it. In much the same way that I have been the leader of my online game as a pirate captain. But honestly, I really feel like I want to retire from it. I came back to lead the team because the team didn't want another captain, but I think I'm going to have to just say, this is my cutoff date, do what you will to find someone else. But just do what makes you happy. You know, it's not always about the journey, it's not always about the path. And often, the times that you forget that you're doing it, you actually find your path. You never know how, you know. That's what I don't really like about making this such a conscious exercise in terms of an intellectually conscious exercise. Spirit can surprise you. I mean, I often find answers in games that I play, in movies that I watch. Something in me will just be like, check that out. And then a puzzle I'll be working on in my head would be answered. Um, Good to know that almost everything you like to watch on YouTube, I like as well, except I love cooking more than baking, lol. Fair enough. I like baking. I like buns, and I like bread, and I like cakes, and I like ice cream. Georgia says, you mentioned sound being important. Are you listening to any music these days? Because there are that many episodes. Um, yeah, I listen to, what the hell is it called? What is that trend where it's 90s So basically, it's like bringing the 20s back, but in a modern way. I listen to that. That's cool. Chiron says, hi, Chiron. Hi. Chiron, give everybody a website. Chiron is a very lovely person whom I've had the privilege to facilitate for, and is a very dear friend. And he's just launched their website. You know, write it down. Totally fine by me. I've already looked at it and verified it. And it's all good. So, you know, share it with the people. I wanted to do this earlier, so it's a good opportunity now. Canon one says, thanks for doing these, Dr. Barry. Most welcome. It's really, these are the kinds of conversations where you learn shit. You know, these are the kinds of things, kinds of times where you actually get an understanding of things. It's not in those very intense moments of change. Now, you've been in session with me, God knows how many times. You know I can do that. But that's not really the learning that you need in the everyday. And this, I find, is a far better format. Nacha asks, like ragtime. Kind of. No, not ragtime. Oh God, I'll have to find a link. I'll have to find a link. But it's basically a trend where people do like they modernize 1920 songs with, and you know, it's modern beats, but it's the same melody, same song. It's quite cool. It's quite cool. So I listen to that, though for the life of me, I can't seem to remember what it's called. But yeah, so I'm listening to that, and I do listen to classical music often. Vivaldi, currently listening to Vivaldi concertos. I love YouTube. I think of all social media platforms, I love YouTube the most because I'm usually listening to something, unless I am in deep thought. That, or unless Josh is singing, which is a miracle. See, we haven't mentioned Thereus. So Josh is still sleeping. He doesn't like that guy. So, but yeah, and no, that's, you know, just trying to be kind, trying to be gentle to myself, trying to be kind to myself, taking the time I need, and just processing one day at a time. one moment at a time. That's how this is done. Spirituality is not glamorous. It just comes down to the daily basics. And that's how to do it. At least that's what I feel, and that's how I have found things to have worked. Keep it simple. So any questions or anything before we close the call? Thank you all for your valiant endurance through this epically bad internet today. But thank you all. I really appreciate the strength of the community. Um, yeah, I hope this has been useful for you. Okay. All right. I'll look them up, LS Cherry. Thank you for the recommendations. Karina asks, Dr. B, Saturn will be in my 10th house. I feel so disoriented. Oh, okay. On how to approach work and career. Right. Okay, now this one is a very. Oh, hi, Marisol. This one, you might want to go back to the beginning because I'm just about to wrap up. If you just joined, that is. Well, Karina, what you're feeling is totally natural. Totally natural. Saturn, Pisces in the 10th house is already a bit of a handful for most people. And Saturn transiting, or rather, if you've got a 10th house Pisces, it's already a handful. Saturn transiting that somewhere can feel like, the rug is being pulled away from under your feet. I don't like making predictions without looking at the whole picture of things, but you gotta basically apply what I have said here to your work situation. Face your truth. Are you where you want to be? Are you doing what you need to be doing? That's the most important thing that you need to ask. Because if you can honestly say yes to these questions, then you should have nothing to worry about, or very little to worry about. Are you doing what you want to be doing? Are you where you need to be? A lot of the time, anxiety, confusion, chaos, fear, I'm not going to put down these emotions, but emotions can very easily be manipulated, emotions can very easily be triggered, emotions can very easily be mimicked. And because of trauma, emotions can come up where they don't have any reason to be otherwise. But listen to your emotions and try and find what is the root of it. If you're feeling anxious and fearful, what is the cause of that anxiety? Is it something that you can act on, or is it something that you can't act on? And yes, it's practical general life advice, true, but it is very apt for you at this time. Nacha says, I got fired twice when Saturn transited my 10th house. I never got fired in my life before. Fair enough. Just bear in mind that Saturn ultimately, for me, I like to tell my brother Saturn is my friend. It doesn't mean to say that it doesn't kick my ass, but if I actually have the discipline and the patience to look at the lessons, I normally find that I am better off at the end of that journey. No, the thing with Pisces, as I said in the beginning, is that you have to have faith. Even if something like a job loss happened, if you have a clear relationship with spirit, and if you trust yourself and if you trust spirit, if that happens, it's not a case of, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Because that doesn't help you. It's okay, why has this happened and what do I need to do next? Once you begin to train yourself in that way, you can overcome that initial anxiety. Because the moment you actually start asking these questions, your brain then has to think. Your brain has to think about, oh, we're making a plan. Oh, okay, how about this? Let's think about options. So it's about questions and it's about understanding that with Saturn, what you will have at the end of the day is what is actually yours and what you actually need. For me, it has also been like the end of Saturn in Aquarius, for example, friendships. I have seen the need to let go of people I never thought I would ever have to let go of. I have seen the need to let go of ideas I never thought I had to let go of. With Saturn in Pisces, it's certain fears. Sometimes this can be the time to liberate yourself from the need to hold on from certain fears or anxieties. Look at it from that perspective and see how you feel. Marisol says, I don't like Saturn. You and my brother don't like Saturn. I do. He sucks, but at least he's honest, as my brother puts it. Cannonball says Saturn has been transiting my 10th house. I've been feeling very stunted career wise. It's understandable. Keep at it and listen to your innermost self. Just because it's tough doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad for you. Think of it like working out at the gym. You're gaining a spiritual muscle. Marisol says Virgo with Leo rising, Libra cusp. Always look at all three signs. Sounds good. Marie says, what if your north node is in Pisces? Then you need to go back to, I don't know if you've caught the beginning of the video, but go back to the basic principles and focus on that. Coyote Prophet says, Saturn is the dog. Yeah. Chiron says, yeah, I'm there. My boss turned into Nessus, conjunct my south node real quick, and I had to put in my 2 weeks. I'm sorry to hear it. Trusting I'd find something much better. Yep, I hope so too, Chiron. Karin says, I'm really so happy to see you back. Thank you, and looking forward to see you again. Wishing you excellent health and much love and prosperity. Gratefully received. I hope that happens for us too. And thank you all for your community support. Marisol says, I'm with you. I cut out so many toxic, narcissist people out of my life. Life is better when they're gone. Life is honestly better when they're gone. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't give up on people till the very end. And I have realized what a colossal waste of time that is. At this point in the game, if you're going to be a narcissistic douche, you're doing it on purpose, especially if someone has already given you enough opportunities to be aware of it. But it's good to catch up with all of you. I think I am going to sign off for now. We have spoken for a bit. Go back to the beginning of the video where I talk about the basic principles for Saturn and Pisces, taking a spiritual approach to it. And as long as you can stay true to those things, you will have a smoother transit. When you are actually willing to go with faith, when you are actually willing to trust, even if the shit does hit the fan, you will be standing there with a watering hose ready to flush it out. It's no guarantee that things are going to work out the way you want them to, but sometimes they will work. But I would say more often than not, they will work out the way you need them to. Bernie says, amazing to hear about jobs, grappling with resignation, trying to understand whether I'm fleeing the lessons or honoring myself. Wow. Glad to hear it. Les Cherry says, what's you going to be dedicated to when you let the channel go? I'll miss you. Baking buns, probably. But I don't think that's happening yet. But at some point, I already did a big thing about that when I left Facebook. I had 30,000 followers there and much larger audience coming in, but I felt it was wrong. And the day I did that, I felt this is the day that I can honestly say I have made a very powerful spiritual choice. It's meant a smaller group, but it's also meant a lot more love, a lot more compassion, and a lot more truth. Let's see. Okay. LS Cherry says, let us virtually bake buns with you. Possible. Maybe I'll make a bun making retreat where all people do is sit and make buns all day. That'd be cool. But, we'll see. We'll see. That time is nowhere near yet. Georgia is all for the bun making retreat. Well, what have I done now? Somehow I think I probably have more success as a baker, materially speaking, but we'll see. What I sometimes like doing is for my friends or even for the little cat fellows, I try to design different types of buns and different types of ice cream based on their personalities. I got an eye for it. My sister too. Oh, well, anyway, I'm going to sign off. It's good to see all of you. Lots of love to everyone. Thank you all for your patience and your commitment, even in pushing through the terrible internet, which has no business being terrible. Natcha says, I'll come to the retreat if we can make some gluten-free buns. Fine, you can make gluten-free buns. So I'm sending you much love, and I hope this information has been useful. As I said, I'll do a pre-recorded video on the actual astrological transits because there are some things that, that you do need to be aware of coming up. But get the energy right, and the transits don't matter so much. Oh, Joking but serious. Some of us feel like family and won't want to never see you. I will consider life bun making. Oh, Candy stuck through. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so take care, kisses, and best wishes to everyone. Ciao, ciao for now. Bye bye.